Hi friends, Krista here. Thank you so much for stopping by Books and Jams today. I am going to be talking to you about the 11 books that I'm excited that are coming out in April, May, and June. I'm excited that I'm sticking with this. I have done an anticipated reads video in the past, but typically I don't pay much attention to what's coming out, but there are some good ones that are on my radar already. And I just wanted, before I jump into April, May, and June, I wanted to touch base about the books that I talked about for January, February, and March. I talked about 11 books, and I've already read 4 of them. I read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, which is now a Book of the Month pick for this month, which I love that I picked a book that she got chosen as a Book of the Month pick. Really enjoyed that one. I was anticipating You Have a Match by Emma Lord and enjoyed that YA. Wasn't my favorite. It wasn't a 5-star. It was, I think, only a 3-star, but it was a fun read. I talked about The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benjamin, and I read that one, and it didn't quite live up to my expectations. It was still a page turner. It was still a good read. I just was a little bit disappointed in it when it came right down to it. And I read The Children's Blizzard by Melanie Benjamin. I loved that one so much. I also grabbed The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, which was another Book of the Month pick. So I own that one, and we'll get to it soon. And I have The Nature of Fragile Things out from the library currently by Susan Meissner. So I will have read 4, 5, 6 of the 11, which is a pretty good percentage, if you ask me. I am hoping to read all of these, but I'm not always going to be able to get my hands on all of them. I do have a couple of that first batch still on hold at the library. Whenever they come in, I'm hoping that I will get to them. I actually just brought home The Rose Code by Kate Quinn from the library as well. That finally came in. So I'm hoping to get to as many of these anticipated reads as I can to tell you how they lived up to it or not along the way. But I do have 11 more books to talk about today. So let's just jump right in. The first one I have is called The Girls in the Stilt House. This is by Kelly Mustine. I did request it on NetGalley. That request is pending. This comes out on April 6th. Actually, these first 4 come out on April 6th. So we'll see about that. But the ones that I'm able to, I have already put on hold at the library. Some of them are not listed yet at my library. But let me tell you about The Girls in the Stilt House. And I do have I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all my anticipated reads, and I just kind of put a short summary of what I remember or what I read about what the book is about. So I'm not going to give you a detailed summary, but this one, The Girls in the Stilt House, is set in the 1920s in Mississippi, and we follow these 2 unlikely friends. I believe one of them is black and one is white, and they are kind of bonded together or brought together because of a murder. I don't know if they're involved in a murder or if they see the murder. I just don't know. One of them I know leaves town and then comes back for whatever reason. But we have racial tension in the South in the 1920s. We've got bootlegging, life in the South. I just think that it sounds so good. So that is the first one that I'm looking forward to in April. The second one is called The Dictionary of Lost Words, which you sign me up for that book. I didn't really need to know much more than that. This is by Pip Williams. It's coming out also on April 6th by Ballantine, which is a subsection of Random House. This one I have on hold at the library. So set during the women's suffrage movement, we follow a young woman named Esme, and she's the daughter of someone who's working on the Oxford English Dictionary, but she comes across a word one day that is cut by her father and the team that's working on this dictionary, and she's confused, like, why are they cutting some words out of the dictionary? And she starts collecting these cut words, and then she realizes that all of these words that they're cutting out, they have something to do with women or common folks' experiences. And so she starts putting them together into her own dictionary. So kind of like bucking against the system a little bit. But I love that whole idea of words and the Oxford English Dictionary and who decides what words got put in there and all of that. I just think that sounds so good. The next one sounds like it's going to be quite a lot of fun. It's called Pride and Premeditation, and it's by Tirza Price, coming out by Harper Teen. So it's a YA, and also on April 6th. I've requested it on NetGalley. I've requested it from my library already. This one is a young adult Pride and Prejudice retelling, sort of like Pride was, that I just read recently. But there's a scandalous murder in London, and Lizzie Bennet is convinced that the wrong person gets convicted. And so she kind of puts herself on the case to try to figure out what happened. And of course, Darcy is going to play a role. So we're going to get elements of the Pride and Prejudice story in the midst of this murder investigation. I'm excited about that idea. The next one is a World War II historical fiction. It's called The Last Bookshop in London. This is by Madeline Martin, and it comes out on April 6th by Hanover Square Press. I've requested it in all the places. It takes place around the time of the London Blitz, but we follow this woman named Grace. She has moved to London, and it's not exactly what she expected it to be. She starts working at a bookstore, really discovers the power of words and the ability that she has within this bookshop to unite her community that's around her in this time of extreme tension and turmoil and anxiety. And it wasn't what she expected, but it becomes kind of more than what she ever dreamed. And she stays there. I think this bookshop stays open in the midst of all the bombings and everything that's going on. Crazy. I'm down for that. This next one is something that I heard about, I believe, on Lauren from Lauren and All the Books, and I have not seen it anywhere. I can't find out information about it. I don't know who it's being published by. I don't know if it's coming out in the US, if it's already out in the UK. I don't know what's going on, but it's called Rumasa or Rumasia by Radia Hafiza, and it's basically 3 fairy tales retold from a Muslim perspective. That's all I know about it. I know Lauren didn't love it. I think she ended up only giving it 3 stars, but I'm just very curious about that idea of a retelling from a Muslim perspective. Just sounds interesting to me. So I put it on my list. I don't know if I'll be able to find it anywhere, or if it's even coming out in the United States, but I thought it sounded cool. So we'll see if I can track that one down. The next one is called The Girl in His Shadow, and this is by Audrey Blake by Source Books Landmark. This one's coming out in May 4th, and I've already been approved for this on NetGalley, which is pretty cool. And in this one, we follow an orphan girl, which is a buzzword for me. Anything about an orphan, like, sign me up. This orphan girl is raised by a surgeon, and women can get in big trouble for practicing medicine during this time. I'm not sure the time period. I didn't write it down, but she assists the surgeon kind of in secret and learns a lot from him. But then a new resident comes to work with this doctor, and she has to pretend to be a proper young lady. But is she going to be able to resist helping people and like putting into practice all these things that she's learned? I doubt it. Strong women seems to be the theme, like kind of secret. We got the woman with the Dictionary of Lost Words, collecting the words. We've got the woman working at a bookshop in the middle of World War II. And now we have this woman who's learned the medical practice and doesn't know if she's going to be able to practice or not, or wants to practice, but has to pretend to be a proper young lady. Yeah, I'm into it. We have a new Pam Jenoff book. Pam Jenoff is one of the authors. I have here 4 of her books that I have not yet read. She's one of the authors I want to read this year. But all of her books sound like books that I'm going to love. And this new one is included. It's called The Woman with the Blue Star. Of course, it's set during 1942 and during World War II. This one also comes out in May. I've also already been approved for this on NetGalley. Comes out, Park Row is publishing this one. And I also have it on hold at the library. So we'll see about that. But it takes place in this ghetto in Poland, in Krakow. And the Nazis are coming to like bring all of the people who live in this ghetto to a concentration camp. So this young woman named Sadie, and a pregnant mother go and hide in the sewers. And while they're down there, a Polish girl sees them kind of through the grate. And, or maybe Sadie is the pregnant mom. I'm not sure. But this Polish girl sees them through the grate and she starts helping them and bringing them some food. And these two Sadie and this Polish girl become friends. And it is based on some true stories that came out of this ghetto in Poland at the time. So I'm excited to read that. It sounds so good. It sounds so good. This next one is called Luck of the Titanic. It's a YA historical fiction being published by G.P. Putnam's Sons. Also coming out in May 4th. May 4th is April 6th and May 4th, like that first Tuesday of the month seems to be when I find books that are coming out that I want to read. The author, Stacey Lee, I don't know if I said that. Stacey Lee learned about these 6 Chinese survivors of the Titanic, that their stories were kind of hush-hush because at the time, they were actually refused entrance into America. So people were being rescued, and these 6 Chinese people were sent to Cuba instead. They were not allowed to come to America. So Stacey Lee learned about that, and that was like her inspiration for writing this book. So in this book, we followed 2 Chinese acrobats. I think one of them gets a job. They're twins. One of them gets a job on the Titanic, and the other one, I don't know if they sneak aboard the Titanic or what, but trying to convince her brother to audition for this circus guy who's on the Titanic. Like, I don't know if it's Barnum and Bailey, I don't know. But she tries to convince her brother we should do our act in front of the circus guy and get a job at the circus when we get to America, type of a thing. I think that sounds so interesting. Mixing these true events that these Chinese immigrants were on the Titanic and also what happened to them, and then the whole circus idea, it just sounds so fun to me. So it was on my radar. The next one is called That Thing About Bollywood by Supriya Kelkar. This is published by Simon & Schuster, coming out on May 18th. I have requested this on NetGalley. It's not available to request from my library yet. But this one kind of reminds me of the show that I love on Hulu called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, where Zoe just is going through life and then hears people busting out into song. This book is kind of that same situation. We follow this young girl. She's having a hard time with her emotions and all of these things going on in her life. A little bit of teenage angst, I'm sure. Her parents are breaking up. She just has a lot of emotions building up inside of her. One day she busts out into a Bollywood style song and dance. Nobody around her seems to think that it's strange. The next day though, she wakes up and everybody around her is like they're in a Bollywood movie. So extraordinary cultural wear and music, and nobody seems to think that it's strange. And what is going on? I am down. I'm down for a book version of that. That sounds so fun. Then we have Anne of Manhattan. And I'm a little nervous about this, but I also am very intrigued by it. It's a retelling of Anne of Green Gables set in Manhattan. It's written by Brina Starler, published by William Morrow, coming out on June 1st. We're into the June books. I've requested it on NetGalley. We'll see if I get it. But it's a modern retelling of Anne set in New York City. Anne lives with her foster family on Long Island and moves to Manhattan for grad school. I'm sure there's a Gilbert. I'm sure there will be a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities. I am here for it. It sounds fun. We'll see what I think of that one. And then finally, last time I had one that was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. And that was The Lost Apothecary. And I ended up loving it. This one is even more out of my wheelhouse. But let me tell you, it's called The Maidens. It's by Alex Michaelides by Celadon Books. And it's coming out on June 15th. This is a psychological thriller. I really enjoyed The Silent Patient by this author, and it was so out of my wheelhouse. I don't read a ton of thrillers anyways, but I'm curious to see what he's going to do next, Alex Michaelides. So this is a psychological suspense, I should say, not thriller, suspense. Women start being murdered at Cambridge College. There's a professor of Greek tragedy that is well loved by all the students and the other faculty, especially by this secret society of young women called the Maidens. They adore this professor. But there is a troubled psychologist who is convinced that this professor is the murderer. She's convinced that he is the one that's doing it. And her obsession with trying to prove that he is the murderer, I think, begins to spiral. So it sounds similar to The Silent Patient in that we have kind of a troubled psychologist, and we have a murder. We have some murders, I believe more than one murder. And I think one of the women who gets murdered is connected to this psychologist. So this obsession, I'm not sure if it's going to be an unreliable narrator, which I don't love, but I'm intrigued to see what it's going to be about. So those are the 11 books that I'm excited about that are coming out in the next 3 months. There were not very many for June and May. I think April had the most. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are April. 4 of them are May, and then only 2 in June. So we shall see. I know there are probably loads more books that I could talk about, but I feel like 11 is good. I'm not even going to get to be able to read all 11 of them, but if I could read half of them again, kind of like I did, get my hands on half of them like I did the first time around, I feel like that's pretty good. But I'm hoping to share with you about some of these books. I'm hoping to get my hands on them and read them and let you know what I think of them. Do you have any books coming out that you're excited for? Do any of these sound interesting to you as well? Do you have any of them already on your radar? Have you added some to your TBR? Let's chat down in the comments below. You guys know I love talking with you down there. I will put Amazon links to these books. You can pre-order, I think, most of them on Amazon, except for that Rumasa one. I don't know how we're going to find that one, but if you have ideas, please help, because it sounds interesting. Anyways, that's it for me today. Let's chat in the comments. As always, I will be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.